Good morning, members of the media and to the viewing and listening public. Thank you for joining us this morning for our weekly press briefing here at the Office of the Leader of the Opposition. As you all know, these briefings are held every Sunday to discuss and highlight important issues affecting the country. I'm joined this morning by my parliamentary colleague, the Member of Parliament for the constituency of Naparima, Mr. Rodney Charles, who would speak shortly after me. Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday, October the 16th, marked the 33rd anniversary of what is known as the Arangwes Mandate, an event which was really the birthing of the United National Congress. And on that day in 1988, thousands of persons stood in the rain in support of what was known as Club 88, the foundation of our party. As true patriots stood in the rain on that day, yearning for unity, equality, and social justice, we continue to stand firm today in support of the rule of law, the doctrine of separation of powers, and in support of the independence of key institutions established by the framers of our Constitution. These are all key components of our democracy, and when they come under threat, it is the duty of every single patriot to speak out and stand up to those who seek to erode our freedom and the way of life that we enjoy in this our treasured republic. The rantings of our madman have not and will not stop the opposition under the astute leadership of Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar of Senior Counsel from exposing the ominous threat posed by the dictatorial tendencies of Keith Rowley and the PNM. The Prime Minister said one thing yesterday that I could possibly agree with, and that is that if aliens landed from Mars, they would not think that Trinidad and Tobago had a government. I have to agree with that. Because when you look around at the sad and sorry state of affairs that we are in this country right now, it is hard to imagine that we have a government. Our country is falling apart, literally. Roads and bridges are falling apart, but our institutions are also crumbling. Now, as an attorney and someone who practiced in the criminal arena for a while, I can tell you that a person who confesses and places themselves in the scene of a crime is a person who knows that they have been caught. They have been caught, and now they have no option but to rant, rave, create as many distractions, diversions, excuses as possible, because they can no longer deny the role that they have played in this very disturbing saga. The Prime Minister admitted that for a year, a whole year, he has been engaging with, interfacing with, having communication with the Police Service Commission, or perhaps only the chairman of the Police Service Commission, and I'll come to that in a short while. But he has been talking to them or to this person about the Commissioner of Police, the then Commissioner. He has admitted to writing to the Police Service Commission to say that he lost confidence in the Commissioner of Police. Based on what? He could only say based on his judgment. So Rowley is now the person who will pass judgment on a person and deliver unto those who have authority over the person whatever information he sees fit, and he does not think it is necessary to explain himself to the public any further than that. Last year around this time, I know then Commissioner Griffith had stood up to the Prime Minister, and very rightly so in my view, to tell him that his interpretation of police powers under the public health regulations was wrong, and that the TTPS could not enter into private property and so on, and we all remember that. And you would recall that Mr. Griffith was summoned to a meeting, and thereafter he had to apologize and so on. Now, interestingly, after that, the government sort of backpedaled, and then they ended up declaring a state of emergency, which is what Mr. Griffith said they had to do if they wanted to give police those types of powers. So in a way, they admitted he was right, but they did not say that he was right. And I don't know if it is that in highlighting this flaw in the logic and the reasoning, and the lack of logic and reasoning and legal acumen on behalf of the Prime Minister and his legal advisor, the Attorney General, is what put Gary Griffith into, a bit of a pickle sometime last year and caused this letter to be written. I shudder to think that a Prime Minister would be so petty, but it appears that if Rowley said jump and you don't ask how high, he will lose confidence in you and he will attack you. As we have heard him yesterday, he attacks everyone and everything that is not pro-PNM and pro-Keith Rowley. So he realized then perhaps that he could not get the Commissioner of Police to simply follow his dictates and his commands, and that did not sit well with him. So he embarked on what appears now to be a campaign against the Commissioner of Police. So he started to interface with the Police Service Commission. One whole year this has been taking place. He astonishingly says that there is an element of interaction built into the independence of our institutions. Well, Mr. Prime Minister, I want to tell you that is hogwash. That is hogwash if you believe that what you have done is some sort of interaction that is built into the independence of our institutions. This is how you are justifying an attempt to influence the Police Service Commission in the exercise of their functions under the Constitution. You go on to say, and that he doesn't have to pass through the president to get to the commission or anything like that. He could do it himself. He is so bold-faced that he is boasting that he can and will and already has utilized his office to feed information to what ought to be an independent service commission. He went on to say that recently he received information which came to him and the National Security Council, and he sent the minutes of a meeting of the National Security Council on to the Police Service Commission as well. Now, I have to ask today, is this the report of the Mongoose Gang of Two? Because it was raised in the Senate when Mr. Griffith was told by the Minister of National Security not to return to work after his vacation leave. And the Minister of National Security admitted that two people who currently hold no office, who have no legal authority as investigators, they do not work for the Police Complaints Authority, they do not work for the Professional Standards Bureau, they do not work for anyone as far as I'm aware, they are both retired. They were sent on a fact-finding exercise. Those are the words of Fitzgerald Hines, Minister of National Security. He said they went into the field, they interviewed who they had to interview, they spoke to persons on this fact-finding exercise purely to advise the National Security Council. But now we are hearing that the minutes of a National Security Council meeting found its way to the Police Service Commission through the Prime Minister. So the fact-finding exercise may have actually resulted in information collected in a most unusual and perhaps even illegal manner being sent to what ought to be the Independent Service Commission, who were engaged in the process of recruiting and selecting a Commissioner of Police, because of course the contract of Mr. Griffith had come to an end. He was being interviewed for a position, and minutes of a meeting where information came to the National Security Council from these two retired people that they pick up and send to investigate found its way to the Service Commission through the Prime Minister. And what is so shocking and disturbing and unsettling about this is that we don't even know if the whole commission was made aware of these feelings and sentiments and loss of confidence and this information that the Prime Minister obtained through his two appointed fact finders, or whether it was only shared with Ms. Blissy Prasad, the former PNM board member who was placed on the Police Service Commission as its chairman. I want to remind the population, the media, and everyone, it is there on the Hansard, go and look at it yourself, that the opposition raised concerns about the independence of Ms. Prasad when her nomination was placed before the House. We asked, how could a person could be given what is known and accepted as a political appointment on a state board, at the same time be appointed to an independent service commission? Ms. Blissy Prasad was serving as a board member of the, I think it was the Chaguaramas Development Authority at the time. She was holding a political appointment to a state board, and they put her as to head and what is or should be an independent service commission. Well, the country is now witnessing the aftermath of that very poor decision. Rowley's admissions yesterday, ladies and gentlemen and brothers and sisters of this country, raise even more questions and make it even more critical for key office holders to account to the population for their action or lack thereof. And let me start firstly, most respectfully, with the President, Ms. Paula May Weeks. The President, now more than ever, must account to the people. Silence is simply not an option. By remaining silent on critical issues, the President is bringing the office that she holds into disrepute by appearing to be partisan. I am not making an allegation that she is, but you know, in the law we always say justice must not only be done but must seem to be done. Well, it is the same thing. You must not only be non-partisan, but you must appear that way to the public. The public must have confidence that the office of the Prime Minister sits above the politics and has no fear or favor in how they exercise its functions and duties. So there have been many calls for answers and explanations, not only from the opposition, but emanating from all different segments of society, and this cannot be ignored. The population has lost confidence in the Police Service Commission, in their independence. They are concerned about the state of the country, about rising crime, and are due to the incompetence of Faris Alwari and political interference by the Prime Minister or chairman of the as chairman of National Security Council, and what appears to be acquiescence by the President. We have no Commissioner of Police. We have no acting commissioner of police. We have no police service commission to even appoint a commissioner of police or an acting commissioner of police. This is the first time since our independence that we have found ourselves in a situation like this, and that is, members of the media, most troubling. It is most troubling, and it is very significant. We must hold the persons who contributed, the authors of this debacle, must be held to account. So I say with the greatest of respect, Madam President, that it is unacceptable, and as a responsible opposition, it is our duty to say that we cannot accept this silence and non-disclosure on behalf of the people of this country. I noted the statement that was issued this morning. I saw it first thing this morning, issued by the President. Now, again, it is most troubling that only now, after all these questions have been bandied about and so much speculation and cases being filed and affidavit evidence being put before the court with respect to the merit list that was submitted to the President. We had one affidavit from the acting director of personnel administration, another affidavit, and I will quote from them just now, from the deputy director of personnel administration in the matter filed by Mr. Ramisa. We had counsel representing the Police Service Commission making certain submissions to the judge in the matter brought by Ravi Balgobin Maraj. All of these things are, the whole country has been asking itself, where is the merit list? Which merit list? Was it an acting merit list? Was it the substantive merit list? Today, the President has come out and said that the merit list was submitted on the 11th of August. I can confirm that an order of merit list with respect to the Commissioner of Police was delivered on 11th of August 2021 to the office of the President and withdrawn almost immediately thereafter that day. So the 11th of August is what we are working with now. In the affidavit evidence filed in the matter of Ravi Balgobin Maraj, the acting director of personnel administration says on the 12th of August, a merit list was submitted to the President. And now we are hearing in the matter of where Mr. Anand Ramisa has petitioned the court in a judicial review matter based on the Commission's decision not to shortlist him and so on. The Deputy Director of Personnel Administration says this: the Police Service Commission has withheld submission of the merit list to the President after attempting to do so because of certain security concerns that came to its attention. As the Police Service Commission is not itself conducting the investigations, not being equipped to do so, to compile a security reports, the Police Service Commission cannot say exactly when the reports will be available for it to finalize its merit list. This is madness. This is pure madness, because a merit list, the entire process prescribed by law, had been completed, and a merit list, we are now hearing from Her Excellency the President, a merit list was delivered to her and then withdrawn. And now we are hearing that they have an investigation that they are not conducting. Well, who is conducting it? We have to rely on what was leaked out of the letter that Mr. Roger Kewal Singh wrote to the President, saying that Ms. Bliss Sipasad, as chairman, was acting unilaterally, went off on a frolic on her own, was interacting with retired Justice Stanley John. So is Justice Stanley John conducting the investigation? What are the terms of reference for this investigation? We need to know. The Deputy Director of Personnel Administration says the Police Service Commission will finalize its merit list when the security report is available. So what we have now, and this affidavit was sworn on the 27th of September, not so long ago, is that up to now there is no actual security report before the Police Service Commission. What did they act on when all hell broke loose on the 11th and 12th of August and they pulled back lists and sent a different list and interface and interact and all of that? We do not know. But we don't know what that information was, and nobody is willing to come out and say. And the President gives her reasoning and explanation for it. She asked a series of questions in her statement here today, and I will attempt to give my my take on some of it. But I must say that it is quite frightening that anybody can take information to the chairman of a service commission about someone who is a candidate or who may be on a merit list or who has applied for a job or who has been shortlisted for a job, and that could cause the entire process to simply be squashed and meritless, to be pulled back and so on. That is a very dangerous situation. It really speaks to the level of autocracy and the type of the lack of discipline and the lack of independence that we are seeing in our institutions, which are enshrined in our constitution for a reason. It is to insulate them and to ensure that they remain independent. So, the leader of the opposition, she has shown extremely great courage in stepping up and taking on this fight on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. No one is above the law, and if something untoward has occurred, all those who are involved or those who have knowledge of what happened must account. Now, the president's questions, and let me get to them, and I didn't intend to deal with this today, but it has come out, and so I have to deal with it. The president says that if there exists apparently credible information that it might impact upon the deliberations of an important constitutional function of the Police Service Commission, should it be brought to the commission's attention, or should the commission be left in the dark? Well, Madam President, I wish to put forward that what it should happen if someone has credible information is that it should go to the appropriate authorities to investigate. We have authorities set up in law. We have a police complaints authority. We have a professional standards bureau whose job it is, whose whole function is to investigate police officers, including the Commissioner of Police. We have those mechanisms there. We have the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, another independent office, which can then review information and determine the credibility and give instructions to police officers to go and investigate, which they have done in the past. So that is my answer to that question. How and by whom is it determined whether the information meets the threshold for consideration? Well, again, I would say I would relieve that information not to Keith Rowley, not to Blissy Prasad, not to the man who had been writing for a whole year to say that he has no confidence in the incumbent Commissioner of Police and is now bringing information to Missy Prasad, not to the man who we know, has brought false information to the Parliament in the form of emails and so on. This is what you considered, Madam President, and you are now almost defending, justifying, and making excuses for this information being passed to the Police Service Commission when nobody can say how credible the information is. We are left to assume that it was credible information because they pick up two fellas somewhere on the road and tell them, who have no office, and tell them go on a fact-finding exercise. This is the information that we must be satisfied is supposedly credible and went to the Service Commission. The President goes on to ask about, what is the mechanism for it to be brought to the attention of the Commission, and says, that when you have public dissemination in the Parliament and so on, well, that can tarnish your reputation. Well, do you think it is preferable for somebody to go and shoo and whisper, or as one of my colleagues likes to say, to go pusur with Miss Blissy Prasad and tell her certain things, or tell the Commission certain things and give them information that is not verified, and scrap the whole recruitment and selection process prescribed by law? Do you think that is more is better than going to the Parliament? And I have to say no, because if you go back to the 2006 amendments passed by the Manning administration to the Constitution, it was a suite of legislation that was brought. The Police Complaints Authority was set up. The Constitution was amended. The Police Service Act was amended. New Police Service regulations came in shortly thereafter. They abolished what was known as the power of veto that the Prime Minister enjoyed over the appointment of the Police Commissioner. And the reason for doing so is because the notification would have to come to the Parliament, and the Parliament is where you have the opportunity to debate and to raise these concerns, the same concerns that the Prime Minister was writing about, the same concerns that as head of National Security Council he passed on to whoever he passed it on to, wherever and whenever he did, whoever collected the fact-finding, whoever went on the fact-finding mission for him. All of that could have been aired in the Parliament. That is the place for it to be done. That power of veto, the Prime Minister essentially, what he did here by writing to the chairman of the Police Service Commission and by passing this information on to them surreptitiously and secretly, basically gave back himself the power of veto. He essentially tried to exercise a power of veto by whispering the information that he had to the chairman of the Police Service Commission. And you know what is so dangerous and why the power of veto was removed in this situation? Because the power of veto allows the Prime Minister to just say, no, I don't want that person. It still exists in relation to certain officers, or I think all of the most senior officers in the public service. But for a commissioner of police, it was felt that that was too much power to give to a politician over someone who is in charge of all the criminal investigations in the country. So the power of veto having been removed by Prime Minister Manning in 2006, you cannot now sit back, Madam Prime Minister, and look, Madam President, and look at the Prime Minister essentially exercising that power in a way and see nothing wrong with it and not speak out about it. So, Madam President, you have still said that you do not think that it will serve any purpose to identify who is the person, but the person has identified themselves. And, you know, the President has gone to great pains in her statement to emphasize that she has not, and her office has not participated or allowed or encouraged and attempted any improper interference and so on. But if you know the person who may have done so, it is your duty to identify them, and it is your duty to speak out and to stand up to that level of interference. Madam President, you are a distinguished legal mind. You must know that it is simply not an option for someone to feed information to a service commission regarding a matter of such grave importance, and for the Police Service Commission to not follow through with a proper procedure. Why, and I will get to it now, why were the actions of the Police Service Commission not more transparent when they did receive complaints and so on? So this brings me to the other character in this saga who, by virtue of her resignation, seems to think that all is forgotten. And I want to say that Ms. Bilisi Pasar cannot and will not be allowed to simply slip out of this melee without being held accountable for her very questionable conduct. The Police Service Commission chairman must say whether she shared the information that the Prime Minister sent to her with the other members of the Commission. Because Roger Kewalsing, and I referred to it before, he wrote a letter to the President when he tendered his resignation, and he seems to suggest that other members of the Commission were left entirely in the dark when it comes to certain aspects of this whole saga that was playing out, including some of the communication that Ms. Sipasar had with retired Justice Stanley John. So, was it to discuss the information that she had received from the Prime Minister? It appears that she also unilaterally made the decision to suspend Mr. Griffith from his acting appointment, and that she refused to withdraw that suspension. Now, I think that Mr. Kewalsing also alluded to the fact that, and I saw some information that was made public, where all of the other commissioners wanted to get independent legal advice, and this wasn't done, and it appears that Ms. Sipasar was acting without the benefit of that advice. So this raises very serious questions about who was really advising and instructing her, because I don't think that she could just be so callous and be so bold as to just take it upon herself, ignore all of the other commissioners, and just carry on this frolic of her own, unless someone perhaps influenced her and told her that she should do it. And if that is not the case, well, she should come out and say so. And if she was influenced, then she should also come out and say so. Because, you see, she embarked on a process now of interviewing candidates, having had a complaint from the Prime Minister about Mr. Gary Griffith. Did this bias her mind against Mr. Griffith? Did she allow Mr. Griffith to respond to the complaints that came to her a whole year ago from the Prime Minister? If the allegations or information in the minutes from the National Security Council and the complaint from the Prime Minister were not put to Mr. Griffith, but were in the mind of either Ms. Sipasar or any other member of the panel of persons who were screening and interviewing applicants for the position of Commissioner of Police, and they acted on them, they formed any opinion without giving him the opportunity to be heard, then at a minimum, they have breached the principles of natural justice. As I said before, the two conflicting affidavits suggest that information was coming fast and furious towards the middle of August when the process was already completed. So, you know, it perhaps made a little more sense to say that after they completed the process, there was new information that they had to hold back and probably look at. But now we are hearing that it's a whole year now. It is a whole year that minutes from meetings and letters of complaints about loss of confidence and so on were coming to them. What did you do, Ms. Sipasar? What did you do when you received these complaints? Did you act upon them? Did you share them with the other commissioners? Did you put them to Mr. Griffith? Did he know about them? Was he able to respond to them? You must come out and say so. And I say again, as the person who appointed the Police Service Commission and the person who at the end of the day must ensure that independent institutions like the Police Service Commission do not simply lose the trust and confidence of the public, I would ask the President to require the members of the Service Commission to answer those questions. Now, in our final, as I wind up here today, I think we have put a lot of information out there, but I have to touch on my learned friend, the Attorney General, the loser who claims victory after every major defeat. I think that Mr. Alwari has lost his, or he has missed his calling in life. He has absolutely no legal acumen, as we have seen. He continues to give bad advice to the Cabinet and the Prime Minister, costing the state thousands of dollars in legal fees. But he certainly would have had an excellent career as a spin doctor. Because before all of the legal interpretations, before all the legal opinions, which again cost the taxpayers money, Mr. Alwari, Attorney General Alwari, boldly proclaimed when the concern had been raised, this is before any litigation was filed and so on, about the interpretation of his very poorly drafted paragraph 4 in the 2021 selection process order. He said that he can quite respectfully disagree with Mr. Prasad. Mr. Prasad is the person who raised it. He said after the Commission writes to the President, it appoints an acting COP under the Constitution. Section 123 is abundantly clear. Well, apparently it wasn't abundantly clear enough to you, because you got it wrong. It says the PSC has the authority to appoint someone to act or hold office. So I respectfully don't think there's any complication or error on the part of the Police Service Commission. Having had the benefit of the process of drafting it, amending it, updating it into law, I am quite clear in my mind that the process has been carried out correctly. Well, Mr. Attorney General, it is only in your mind that it seemed to be clear, but it was not clear in anybody else's mind, including apparently now the President. So the President had concerns. You came out and gave bad advice to the whole country. You are the legal advisor to the state and you gave bad advice to the whole country as the guardian of the public interest, the titular head of the bar. You could not even read Section 123 of the Constitution properly. So then you were only forced to concede the claim after someone leaked the opinion of retired Justice Nelson. And again, I heard that the Prime Minister saying yesterday, well, they had so many different legal opinions, so they got the opinion of a learned senior counsel. Mr. Prime Minister, the fact that if one paragraph in a piece of subsidiary legislation could generate so many different interpretations is all the evidence you need that Faris Alwari is incompetent and that he has put forward a badly drafted law, not for the first time, in respect of this same Police Service Commission selection order. It is the second time that litigation has had to be launched. It is the second time that the court has found the order to be badly drafted. It is the second time that Faris Alwari's incompetence and his desire to somehow meddle in this process of appointing a police commissioner, whether it is substantive or acting, it will cost the taxpayers of this country money. Now, Mr. Prime Minister, you said yesterday that the first person who pointed out the flaw in Alwari's order to you and the unconstitutional appointment to the Office of Acting Commissioner of Police was the President. Why didn't you act immediately? Why didn't you instruct your Attorney General to file an interpretation claim? You know that could be done. It was done, in fact, by the Attorney General in relation to the matter involving the former Chief Magistrate. Why didn't the President act immediately? Again, Madam President, and I'm happy that you said it here today, that you are not a rubber stamp, because I wrote it last night. You are not a rubber stamp. You appointed the Police Service Commission, and if you have the view that the Constitution mandated that the notification be sent to the Parliament, no one, not the Prime Minister, not Blissy Prasad, nobody else should have been able to convince you otherwise, and you ought to have acted, Madam President. Ms. Blissy Prasad and the President basically ignored Section 123 of the Constitution and followed Alwari's bad law. So, when Alwari went into hiding after the leak of that opinion, and he emerged only to try to save face now and say, well, the same applies to the 2009 order, also drafted under a PNM government. I don't care how he tries to spin this. These are two PNM governments that put two bad orders in place. And yes, it's existed for many years. Nobody picked it up, but nobody raised it. During the tenure of the People's Partnership government, A.J. Alwari, you were a senator. You were sitting there. Why didn't you raise it with all your legal acumen and constitutional law experience? And that's sarcasm, in case you're wondering. So you seem to think that because the 2009 order is bad, that it makes your 2021 order less bad? Well, it does not. Mr. Alwari, A.J. Alwari, I want to say, you know, what has happened in this scenario when the concern was raised in the public domain by Mr. Prasad is really the personification of the disaster that occurs when ignorance collides with arrogance. Because you do not know what you are doing, but you also do not know that you do not know what you are doing. And that is very dangerous to the country and to the legal affairs of the state being managed by someone who is not only unaware, but isn't even willing to stop and pause and take a look at what is happening. Now, you asked the court to widen the scope of the case, and it turns out now that every acting appointment made since 2009 is bad for both Commissioner of Police and Deputy Commissioner of Police. I hope that you can deal with the consequences which flow from these two PNM made laws which were offensive to our Constitution. You claim victory for placing something into our law which the court describes as superfluous. I don't know what type of victory that is for you. It is a demonstration, I think, of how shallow your understanding of the law really is. H.L. Wari lacks the intellectual capacity to appreciate the ramifications of his sloppiness and his penchant for what he thinks is creativity in the passing of laws. He continuously undermines the Constitution, removing special majority requirements, introducing far-reaching measures which impact upon the rights and freedoms of individuals via subsidiary legislation. Now, many of these matters are engaging the attention of the court, so I will not say more on that right now, but I will simply say this. Time longer than twine. And what may seem like a political victory for you today in various matters may be a legal defeat tomorrow. And no amount of press releases and right foot, left foot, pussyfooting around serious issues will get you out of the mess that you are creating. And I want to encourage every single person in this country, every citizen, every patriot, everyone who is concerned about the state of affairs of this country, to support our call for answers, for accountability, and for transparency from the highest office holders of this land, the three highest office holders of the land, the President, the Prime Minister, and the Attorney General. All have questions to answer in relation to this debacle, and we are taking every possible legal step under the guidance and the knowledge and the experience of Ms. Kamala Persad-Bissessor to hold these persons to account on behalf of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. So thank you very much, and we will take some questions after, but I will hand over now to my colleague MP Charles, who, coming out of this state of affairs with the Police Service Commission and the Commissioner of Police Office, is going to speak a little bit about the state of crime affecting our country right now.